Good afternoon, everyone. Today is March 12th, 2024. This is a City of Prescott voting meeting. I'll apologize a little bit. My voice is even lower than it was before. I'm trying to audition for the bass player, the bass voice, and who would that be?
FM radio.
No, I'm thinking of the, oh God, I can't think.
FM radio.
It's not that. The Oak Ridge Boys. Elvira. There we go. We'll have introductions and announcements, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, sir. I do have some. So today, members of the public are invited to attend a meet and greet with the city manager finalists on Thursday, March 21st from 1 o'clock to 3:30 p.m. at the Hacienda Inn Marina Room located at room 122 East Gurley Street, Prescott, Arizona. At the meeting, each candidate will provide a brief bio and will answer questions one-on-one. This is an open house format with no formal program, so citizens can come anytime during the 2.5-hour period to meet the contestants. It was announced, it was announced that the City of Prescott has received a $3 million of congressionally directed funding for the Prescott Regional Airport. We want to thank Senators Mark Kelly and Kirsten Sinema for their efforts to get this approved. And that's it, Mayor.
Well, for those of you who attend our city council meetings, you'll recall that back in September, we presented a proclamation to World War II veteran Al Cheney. Shortly after his 103rd birthday. Well, Al just passed away in the last week or two, so I would ask for just a moment of silence to recognize his long service to the city. He was an attorney here for over 20 years, and of course his service to our country. Thank you very much for that. We'll next have an invocation from Rabbi Julie Kozlow with the Jewish community of ADOT, followed by a Pledge of Allegiance by Councilman Moore.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. I'm Rabbi Julie Kozlow, the spiritual leader of the Jewish community of Or Atid. My gratitude goes to you, Mayor Good, and the city council members who make up this leadership team. Thank you for allowing me this chance to speak to your hearts. You have taken upon yourselves the obligation to use your position to speak for all of the citizens of Prescott. Well, I am here to bestow upon you blessings of strength, of insight, of clear vision to stay the steady course of our democracy, which is the pride and joy of every American. My people hold to the pursuit of peace as an overriding directive for all aspects of life. We are commanded to pursue peace at all costs. We are commanded to ohev shalom verodef shalom, to both love peace as well as actively pursue it. Loving peace alone, though, we know is not enough. God's voice echoes through to every corner of this world. Humans make peace. This is not a mere suggestion. It is spoken in the imperative, humans, you must make peace. As political leaders of the city, this imperative must underpin your every decision. It is my prayer and my hope that each of you understands on the deepest level the privilege that you have that allows you to serve, and that service must encompass goodness for all. That is the true goal of service, to change the world for the better, each and every one of us. May it be God's will that the goodness in all of us will win the day, for you, for me, for our children and our children's children. You are laying the path towards the future, and with every decision you make, please ensure that those decisions wind towards peace. Thank you. Pardon me? Amen? You say amen. Do Do you want to know what amen means? Should I tell you as a Hebrew person? Amen comes from the Hebrew word faith. So when somebody says something that you agree with, you say amen, and it's as if you had said it. So I say the prayer, you say, amen. We're done. The Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much.
All right, we'll have a roll call, please.
Mayor Good,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Cantelmi,
Here.
Councilwoman Freeworth,
Here.
Councilman Gambogi,
Here.
Councilman Moore,
Here.
Councilmember Rusing,
Here.
and the record will reflect that Councilman Montoya is excused from the meeting.
All right, the first item is a proclamation on National Social Work Month. Councilman Moore?
Thank you, Mayor. Do we have anyone here from the audience to accept this proclamation? Come on up. Thank you for coming. It's wonderful to have all of you here today. All right. This is a proclamation on National Social Work Month, March 2024. Whereas the City of Prescott is pleased to join Dignity Health Yavapai Regional Medical Center, located in our city, as it celebrates National Social Work Month, March 1st through the 31st, 2024. And whereas social workers serve our most vulnerable community members through advocacy, education, and support when they present to the emergency department and inpatient care hospital. And whereas the depth and breadth of the social work profession meets a wide scope of emerging psychosocial needs, resulting in improved health equity. And whereas social work is an indispensable component of holistic quality care of the hospitalized and non-hospitalized patients, and whereas we commend the social workers at Dignity Health Yavapai Regional Medical Center, as well as those serving in many other commendable organizations within our community for dedicating themselves to the complex needs of all people placed in their care. Now, therefore, Mayor Phil Good of the City of Prescott does hereby proclaim the month of March 2024 as National Social Work Month. Thank you. Is there anybody who would like to take a moment to speak?
They're not shy. Good afternoon. My name is Sonia Soto. I'm the Director of Care Coordination at Yavapai Regional Medical Center. I have the pure joy to work with these ladies and gentlemen at the hospital every day on East and West campuses. Several of you in the forum, in the audience here, are social workers with partners of ours, hospice agencies, skilled nursing facilities, shelters. We have social workers in so many different areas of our city doing such wonderful work, corrections, education, so many. I'll forget someone, but we're glad to have all of you here that could make it here today. And I really want to thank the town council for just having this as an opportunity where we can recognize our community members that are really working every day to make such a difference. So thank you.
Thank you very much. We'd like to do a photo opportunity. So let me present this to you.
I'm not a social worker.
You're a social work advocate.
I am. I do love them, but. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next item is our open call to the public.
Thank you, Mayor. The City of Prescott welcomes public engagement. Residents may comment and address the council regarding matters that are not included on the posted agenda during the call to the public. If you wish to speak, please complete a green speaker card and submit it to me prior to the meeting being convened. As a reminder, speakers are limited to 4 minutes, and the call to the public will be limited to 40 minutes in total, with the following stipulations. Citizens will be limited to addressing the council on the same topic only 4 times in total. If a topic has been addressed more than 5 times by different speakers, the mayor may limit future topics. And topics of a primarily national concern may be limited at the discretion of the mayor. I do have a card from Truly Bracken.
I will not take 4 minutes of your time. My name is. I will not take 4 minutes of your time. My name is Truly Bracken. I live at 1843 Idlewild Hill, Prescott. I just want to express our gratitude in the neighborhood for your having heard us on so many issues. It seems to me that all I can say is you would have received Dave Klein's email yesterday, and I would like to say amen to that from the point of view of the public. Thank you.
Bonnie McMinn.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before you. I live at 954 Broken Branch in Prescott, Arizona. Mine will not be as short or as sweet, but I appreciate the opportunity to speak about the city-owned property known as the Rodeo Grounds and the recent rezoning application received weeks ago by the city staff. I have 2 points to make, but first I will attempt to address what I consider the elephant in the room, at least from this citizen's perspective. We hear a lot about transparency, and it is typically a phrase used with regard to elected officials. But today I'm going to use this phrase with regard to city staff respectfully, but I'm also going to use the term low citizen morale. You see, it is a two-way street. The rezone application has been in process, my understanding, since August of 2023. We've known it was coming. The citizens brought forth 2 citizen petitions to guard against the very thing that we're facing, which is a lack of transparency. But this lack of transparency is not from the council, it's from the staff. The staff is withholding valuable, important, and for many, the neighborhood people specifically, life-changing information with regard to the city-owned property known as the Rodeo Grounds. Why do the citizens have to file public records requests for information that should be posted on the city website? There's already a tab there. We've already seen the in-process master plan. Why isn't everything that the city's received uploaded to that site? This is analogous to AED a few years ago, where all of that vast amount of information we received whenever it was posted to the city website, and that was true transparency from council and from staff. The rezoning application, from what I understand, was submitted on February 14th. Tomorrow, it's going to be 4 weeks since that application was received, and the citizens are being instructed by city staff that they must file a public records request. Why is that, and where is the transparency? In my opinion, this is putting undue burden upon the city staff's office to manage several public records requests and taking away from other work that they could be doing. This creates low citizen morale. This is not a council decision, it's a staff decision, and one can only imagine who's directing staff to withhold this information. Do you see how an anticipated situation of the citizens looking for the application can be turned into a problem when it doesn't need to be? Please post the documents. Please post all the comments back and forth between the applicant and between city staff. And I respectfully request of this entire body that because of the delay in the citizens seeing these documents, that lack of transparency or perceived transparency, please postpone this scheduled April 9th study session until sometime in May, which is going to provide the citizens of Prescott adequate time to review the documents, prepare questions, comments, concerns. I asked the question, what's the rush? We were told, at least via the courier, that it would be a 7 to 9 month process. Press the pause button, provide the documents, and reschedule the study session so everyone can be adequately prepared. Thank you very much.
That's all, Mayor.
Very good. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Does anyone wish to pull anything from the consent agenda before we vote on it?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull item 8E.
8E. Very good. Any other items? No? Then I'll entertain a motion for the rest of the items on the consent agenda.
Mayor, I move to approve consent agenda items 8A through F, excluding 8E.
Second.
Very good. We have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Mayor Pro Tem, you can give it to me verbally if it's not populating for you. Thank you. Passes 6-0.
I appreciate this schematic on the screen. But we'll move over to item 8E. So Tim Legler.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Councilman Gambogi and I spoke yesterday about this, and what he's looking for is just kind of a quick overview of this project. So this project, 2 different amendments to the original contract, and what it is installation of the backup generator for City Hall, and then the other piece of that is because of where that generator is going, we have to move the dumpster enclosure, which go at the end of the bank drive-through. So combined, that's these 2 projects. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So where is the trash can moving to?
So if IT can bring up that one, I'll show you on a map.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Sorry about that. Had a little glitch here in my technology. So I also was going to pull this item, and you and I met this morning with Tyler, and I think we worked out some of my concerns. And going forward, I just wanted to see basically a different type a format for these proposals, more inclusive of some of the harder bids what we received today. As you know, I thought the bid was extremely high for what we were getting, and it was nice enough for you to walk the project with me and go forward. So I'm hoping that we've kind of worked out some style of proposals as we go forward on other things. And I think you answered most of my questions this morning, and thank you for that.
Thank you. So the map here is going to show the dumpster enclosure. So this is basically coming off of Willis into the alleyway. You'll see the red truck kind of facing the parking lot of City Hall. So it's actually going to be over that wall. And that's part of the engineering of building that structure up to make it level with that driveway. That way it keeps the heavy garbage truck out of the City Hall parking lot, which tends to destroy the parking lots. The blue and the red is the turning radiuses. This is what the engineers have come up with to make sure we have the proper turning radiuses and can flow traffic.
Councilmember Rusing.
Thank you. I have a question about the backup generator. It's, I understand, going to be diesel powered.
Correct.
And it's being, this building does not have any backup in case the power goes out. And the rationale is that we need to have the city council building able to function 24/7 in case of an emergency. And so that's the reason why we're having the backup generator installed.
Yes, absolutely. When the building was purchased, the old City Hall has a generator that would kick on if the power is lost, but absolutely with considered a critical infrastructure, being that it's city government. City government needs to be here for the citizens in the event of an emergency.
Tim, I had a question. Normally when we have an award of a project of this size, over $300,000, we always have a copy of the bids that were submitted. I only saw one.
Correct. So this process used the job order contracting, which we went out to sealed bids in August of 2022. We had about 8 contractors supply sealed bids to this. That created the job order contract list. We selected 4 contractors from that: Haley Construction, Fan Construction, Ridgeline Builders, and Kinney Construction. On those 4, at that point, because of the competitive bid that took place for the JOC list, we can then pick one from that. They supply us a bid. It speeds up that process. A typical sealed bid can take 8 to 12 weeks. So that's why you only saw one, is because we selected them from the job order contract, the already approved list.
Well, I would, since it's a speeded up process, which is adequate, I'd still like to be able to see what the other bids are when you submit your packet,
Okay.
just so I can review those.
Sure.
So I'll entertain a motion on this item. I'm sorry, Councilman Moore.
Thank you, Mayor. No problem. A lot of times backup generators are fueled like by natural gas, but this is diesel, and we don't have diesel in the street like pipes. So how much fuel is going to be stored on site, and where is it going to be stored? I'm just curious, since it's going to be diesel, not natural gas, how you're going to be handling that.
Great question. So the way the generator is built, the diesel tank is actually underneath the generator. It's on the bottom. It'll house about 75 gallons of diesel, which, based on runtime, the engineers have figured that piece out. We've had generators that run on natural gas, and I just want to touch on that a little bit. The pressure in the area isn't enough, especially in winter months, to power the generator, because everybody's got their heat on and is taking that pressure away. That's why we go with diesel. We feel it ourselves with our fleet maintenance division. If it becomes lower, it's constantly running because of a power outage.
So even though it only has 75-gallon capacity, the city crews will maintain filling it with
Correct.
their own vehicles?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve city contract number 2023-068A13 and 2023-068A14.
Second.
Have a motion is second. Please vote.
Passes 6-0.
Very good. We'll move on to liquor license item 9A.
Public hearing and consideration for a new Series 18 distillery liquor license application from Jeffrey Craig Miller, applicant for Granite Mountain Distillery, location 400 North Washington Avenue. The application fees have been paid, the signs have been posted for the required 20 days, and staff has reviewed the application and determined that it is in compliance. No public comments have been received.
Does anybody have any questions about this? Is the applicant present?
No, they're not, Mayor.
Okay. In that case, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion is second. Please vote.
Mayor Pro Tem, you have to be in the item. Okay, and you just verbally give me your vote then. Thank you. Passes 6-0.
Mayor, I move to approve liquor license number 277655 for a new Series 18 distillery liquor license application for Granite Mountain Distillery located at 400 North Washington Street.
Second.
Motion is second. Please vote. There you go.
Passes 6-0.
Very good. We'll move on to regular agenda item 10A.
Presentation and discussion regarding an overview of the city's IT department.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm Nate Keegan, IT Director at the City of Prescott. Right before the meeting started, somebody backstage said to me, you know, this presentation doesn't have any computers in it. was like, well, it hadn't really occurred to me till that moment. But that's a good segue into, we just had some stuff talking about generators, garbage, solid waste pickup. Those are meat and potato government things, right? Like I can see a fire engine drive by. I can understand water, wastewater. I can understand core city things like buildings. IT stuff is very much not that, right? Like it depends on electricity. If the electricity goes out, IT effectively stops. So how do you explain something that is a paradox and a riddle inside of a quandary to people that don't have to deal with it all the time and not make it really boring? How you make it not esoteric? How do you make it interesting and actually relatable? Well, hopefully, knock on wood, that's what we're gonna do. So in a nutshell, information technology, IT, the best way I think to think of it is like this mosaic, which is it's made up of a bunch of smaller things. Those things collectively can look and be used and be created to make something else. That's the art and the science of IT, taking very abstract things on one hand. I'll give you an example. In this room right now, we have wireless Wi-Fi. Your iPads are connected to copper wires. Those wires are using small variations in voltage to send binary data, zeros and ones. That goes to a device, a magic box on this floor with blinky lights, and it rides fiber optics, which is about the dimension of a human hair, and that's using flashing light. All that goes somewhere, maybe the internet, across the world and back. So that's pretty amazing that it works, period, frankly. So to me, the best way to explain IT to someone else is like a mosaic. It's taking a bunch of things. Hopefully you can make those things look like something else that's intelligible, that's useful, pretty straightforward. So I just said IT is a mosaic. That's true. If you flip gears a little bit, an IT system is really like an ecosystem in nature. So in this picture, you have things you'd expect to find in nature. So a data network might be like the air, the water, the soil. Without it, you don't have animals, you don't have trees, you don't have plants. But if I built a perfect data network, the foundation of IT stuff is networking. If I built that, so what? Who cares, right? It has to have a purpose. So any IT system is really taking all these disparate elements and making it useful. Who's it useful for? It has to be useful for our citizens, city staff, and the business of government. So IT being a service within the city of Prescott, we're not the reason why the city turns on the lights in the morning. We're not the reason why city services happen, but we help them happen. So it's an interesting thing to be in as a position where you shouldn't have to care about IT. If we do it properly, it should be invisible. If we do IT poorly, everybody's gonna know. And it's not a good look, it's not a good feeling. So the trick is always to make it so it looks like this. It looks lovely, it looks peaceful, it's complex, but you shouldn't have to care about the complexity. This is what we look like. The vertical from left to right are our divisions. So your help desk is really your jack of all trades in IT. They cover a lot of ground. Your operations would be your infrastructure, your network, your security, your storage, those fundamental things that IT departments have to have. Applications is really applications and data, right? Opening up the treasure chests of data, making data accessible to other people. And then you have GIS, which they don't love it, but most people would associate GIS with maps, which you see all the time in your meetings, right? Maps. Really what GIS is like a thing, this microphone, that exists in a latitude and longitude place on the earth. It has attributes, and GIS collects all that stuff together and can translate it out to where's the best place to build a fire station. Can you show me where our water and sewer lines go? That's GIS. Now, vertically, these things are important, and they're in most every IT organization. They're not special to Prescott. But I've been in IT for a long time, the industry and also the city of Prescott IT. There's very little things anymore that you can one-person army in IT. So horizontally, there's a lot of overlap among IT where we have to mesh among groups and overlap to actually do stuff because it's complicated, it's nuanced, it's too much for one person to really know, right? So we have a lot of collaboration in IT. So our budget. The takeaway, I think, from this would be a couple things. One, we're cost recovered within the city of Prescott. So if IT costs X, every department pays toward that, right? Because we're a service fund. There's 20 of us right now. In the current fiscal year, we added an IT specialist. And what I would call a technology paradox, which is a $5 way of saying that while there's lots of technology, you got to have actual humans to make the technology do something, do it interesting, do it day to day, make sure it doesn't break down. So the more technology you have, you actually need more and more people to understand what it can do, what it can't do, and make it do something useful, which is the whole point of IT, frankly, especially in government. Our strategic initiatives, you got to be flexible. Technology changes at an incredible pace. A long time ago, back when Edison and Tesla were fighting about power standards, when I entered the IT field, your knowledge base would be good for maybe 2 to 3 years, and then you'd have to kind of replace things. Now, you're lucky if you get a couple months. It's not wholesale. I'm not changing out all my knowledge, but you shouldn't be married to knowledge in the IT field. Like, you have knowledge. The things I might know today in a couple months, some of them continue forward, some of them, who cares? They don't matter anymore. So you have to be a certain amount of flexibility to be able to deal with that and keep your sanity. I mentioned IT is very collaborative. We are very, very, very structured around communication, creativity, and critical thinking. That just comes with IT work in general. That's how we're structured. I put Mind the Horizon. So if you can imagine IT work is like this room, there's a decent amount of stuff going on, right? There's maybe a lot of different conversations before the meeting, a lot of different people. Well, let's say you bring in 50 more people and a marching band. I'm like, well, there's starting to be a lot of stuff going on here. I'm like, okay. And then someone comes in with like a unicycle and they're juggling, and they're like, well, that's pretty crazy. And there's a window, like I can see the horizon out there. That's the IT long-range perspective. I got to see the horizon. But man, there's a lot of stuff going on in this room right now. So let's say some more people come in the room. There's more stuff going on. I'm like, I got to pay attention to that. And then suddenly, IT-wise, I'm not looking out the window anymore at what's coming. I'm looking at what's going on here. And it's amazing, super interesting. I could spend all day, every day looking at it and helping to make it happen. So the balance you got to have is long-term, which in IT life is 2 to 3 years, to be honest. And once you get beyond 18 months, it's kind of spin the wheel, magic 8 ball. I think this is what's going to happen, but I don't know, right? That's just technology. And that's what I mean by Mind the Horizon, is you got to kind of find the balance of, as the IT director, I can't sit and stare out the window all day, as lovely as it would be, and ignore everybody here. Flip side, I can't totally focus on everything here down to the infinite levels and ignore everything outside this room, the block, the building, out to the horizon. So the enemy of IT stability is complexity. It's a complex field. It's esoteric. Making it more complicated doesn't really help anyone, frankly. That's all it means by that. Secure by design, cybersecurity is a big deal. It's not a product, cybersecurity. The smart way to do it isn't to go to Amazon, I buy a box of cybersecurity, I sprinkle it here, I sprinkle it there, and we're good. It's like, no, you design it in by default, and then those things interlock to make a more secure environment. Pretty straightforward. At your strategic planning session, there's a lot of talk about data-driven decision-making. We have never had more access to data ever in human history. That's a blessing and a curse. The blessing is there's information everywhere. The curse is there's information everywhere. How do you make it accessible? How do I take it to, say, a Chelsea Walton? And like, Chelsea, here's the treasure troves of data. I don't know what it means. I'm an IT guy. I have no idea what this stuff means. It's data. And make that accessible to departments is kind of the point of IT. We're an enabler. We want to be like a utility. We bring the pipes, the items, the services to you, and then get out of the department's way and let them do the important stuff they need to do with that software, that hardware, those things, if that makes sense. IT trends and opportunities. I think it's something I ask all the time for myself. Where are we going? Where's IT going as a field? As a department, the city of Prescott? I already mentioned that people are really, really important to IT. If I have poor staff, poor morale in my staff, dummies working for me, right? I'm a dummy, right? I'm directing people to do dumb things. All the technology you spend money toward is completely worthless. Has no point to it. I'm very fortunate, have an excellent staff, very smart people. It's paradoxical, but the more technology you have, as an IT person, you're sort of like an astronaut. On one hand, you're traveling to the world of IT. It's very specific, very esoteric. You're dealing with IT people. And then you got to hop back over to the world of people, humans, and translate those things back and forth. So both sides aren't like ships passing in the night. They kind of drive each other, right? Technology exists to make people be able to do more things, do more interesting things. Sometimes the hard part of technology is just drawing out of somebody, what is it you want us to actually do? We'll do it. But is it this? No, it's not that. What about this? Like, that's wonderful, but that's not what I want. Like, oh, that's the tricky part, is trying to balance that. And we put a high amount of value in IT people that are very relatable. They don't seem like IT people, meaning like they don't make people uncomfortable, I think, right? We're accessible, pretty normal. I've touched on the tempo of IT work. It's high, it's complex. That's not a complaint, that's just what it is, right? If I'm not comfortable with that as an IT person, that's probably not the field for me. That's just what it is. It's like air. You breathe it, you shouldn't have to think about it. In IT, complexity, esoteric, high tempo, that's just what it is. You just gotta find ways to cope. Reliance upon technology, this one makes me uneasy. And I say uneasy because on one hand, I think I have a pretty good grasp on how technology works, what its role is, but we're super reliant upon it. And that's just not just in the city of Prescott, it's across our culture, across lots of cultures now. And what's interesting is once you have that tiger by the tail, you can't easily go back, right? I can't un-technology easily, short of going to raise baby goats on a farm somewhere. I could do that. That seems pretty low tech. Riding my mountain bike's fairly low tech. But as you see, like say the internet goes down for some reason, what's that affect? Like lots of things. ATMs, it's hard to get gas at point of sale. So many things are integrated now and rely upon technology that on one hand, we're able to do a lot of interesting things with technology, but it's a dual-edged sword. And when that technology fails, it doesn't do what you expect to do, or it's gone, it complicates things. That's just one of those things we wrestle with in IT. I mentioned IT as a utility. We're very much, in my opinion, we should be very much like a water system. We bring pipes up to a department, a thing, provide capacity, we provide software, we provide IT things. They shouldn't have to think about that. They shouldn't have to be like, gee whiz, I wonder if IT is going to work in the morning. They should just do it. Information overwhelms. It kind of goes along with something I said a little bit ago about we've never had access to more information, but that's the problem, right? And sometimes it's hard to know, like make it stop, make the information stop. I see too many things coming, want my attention, blinky light here, my phone's making noise over there. As humans, we're not well adapted to technology, right? Because technology hasn't been around, like computer technology hasn't been around for that long. So what we often see is information fatigue, overwhelm, and that happens to IT people. It's just too much, too fast, forever. And better mousetraps is pretty straightforward. Like we got to find better ways to do things that are less intensive, things that require less bespoke, magical person to touch to make them work. It just needs to work all the time, everywhere. I included this slide as it's a couple things here going on. One, these are the IT requests we've had the last 3 years in our ticketing system. Numbers don't always tell the story. So you see a large increase here in the last 3 years. If my University of Arizona math is correct, that's roughly a double from last year to the year we just had. So our workload's gone up. It's gone up every year I've worked at the city of Prescott. But that number doesn't tell you the whole story. Are things getting more complicated? Yes. So quantity plus complication of task is not a great trend, right? It's harder to do something. We have a lot of automation in IT. So some of these increases are because we have more things sending in messages to IT like, hey, this is the battery backup unit at the 201 North Montezuma site. The power went out. You should look at that IT friend. Like, oh, thank you. Thank you. That's very helpful. I'll drive over there and see what's going on. So it's a combination here. What you're seeing is our workload's going through the roof. Every request we get for help is not created equally. So while 30,000, it's hard to read that, 30,000, 32,000, whatever it is, that's a lot. 30,000 anything, 30,000 kids, 30,000 kittens, 30,000 jugglers is a lot, no matter how you slice that. But that's what we're here to do. So it's incumbent upon us as a department to come up with ways to mitigate that. I mean, one option is just you collapse under it, right? It's like it's too much load, I'm a goner. And that happens to IT departments. You get surges in demand for what you do, and what can happen is cracks form. I stop communicating as well as the department. We stop collaborating as well because we're just too busy running around like chickens with our heads cut off. That's where you run into trouble with cybersecurity. That's where that idea of the gaze and the perspective of right now, right here, and strategic planning goes out the window in IT groups, right? Who's got time for that? I'm just trying to survive. And if my horizon becomes the next 30 minutes, that's great until what's that shiny light out there? It's a freight train, right? It's not a good balance to have. So what I'm trying to show you in this slide isn't that boohoo IT, poor us. It's that this is a trend that's been going on. I think most IT groups would have a similar trend. There's people have more stuff they want from an IT department. Nothing wrong with that. We got to find a way to do it more efficiently, more effectively, and more aggressively, to be honest. Sadie Sardi was very kind to come in today to show you some stuff about the website. So by your leave, I'd like to do that. And if you have any questions, more than happy to answer them. So Sadie, if you want to come on up.
Councilmember Rusing.
Yeah. Nate, I just have we recently had a strategic planning session, and public safety was at the forefront, and telecommunications. What is your role? I was wondering if you could tell us what your role is with our police and fire telecommunications system, the radios, and our connection with the dispatch center.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we, City of Prescott IT Department, are the IT department for the entire Prescott Regional Communications Center. So that's not just Prescott, that's Prescott, Prescott Valley, Central Arizona Fire Medical, the Tribe, Yavapai College, Groom Creek, Walker Fire, and I might be forgetting somebody. So
could you say that again?
That's everybody. So basically, if you go over to the dispatch center, that's everybody in western Yavapai County with the exception of Williamson Valley Fire and Yavapai Sheriff. We are their IT department, City of Prescott. So before I came over here, as a matter of fact, we had an issue at the dispatch center with the 911 system. That we're who they call 24/7. That's all those elements I showed in that mosaic, all those things we do for the city, we do that for the dispatch center, with the difference being public safety stuff, of course, is public safety, right? It's really important. But so is other city government functions. Those are important too. So it ends up being complex at times to juggle what the city departments are doing and try to do all of it in a way that's both sustainable and also proper IT. Not feel like I fixed that. I don't really know how I did it. I guess it's good enough, fingers crossed, until it's not. And then that can be not great.
Well, thank you. That's very impressive, and it's very helpful to the public to know. It's very reassuring to know that all of our public safety departments are all under one umbrella and can communicate easily with each other. So thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And I
Mayor
would say
Pro
that
Tem.
as they go, we go.
Hey, Nate, did I hear you say that out of these 30,000 calls, 20 people in your department are handling
Yes, ma'am.
those 30,000 calls?
That's correct.
In that 30,000, do you have a breakdown somewhere on I'd just be curious.
Yeah.
Is it all Ted Gambogi calling, or?
I'm not sure how to answer that. It's all over the place. So I might get hey, I can't log in. My password doesn't work. Super easy. 30,000 of those, no sweat. It could be like the dispatch center. We're not seeing the address when a caller calls 911 come into our computer-aided dispatch. Well, okay, that's important. We got to figure that out. So we have a breakdown by who puts them in, what they are, and we look at that. I mean, right? It's in our name, technology and information. So we look at where are calls coming from. Gee whiz, maybe we need to do a better job of training people. We wouldn't get as many calls, right? At a certain point, with 20 people, I think it's 90 a day. It works out to business day. It's coming at you from every angle.
That's a lot. Do you also, not everybody, but appointed people work around the clock also, so you're available at midnight if somebody needs you?
We have 2 on-calls. So we have an on-call for non-public safety 24/7, and then we have a public safety dedicated and on-call 24/7.
Oh.
So last year, we were a number of times out at 1, 2 a.m. in the morning at dispatch center. We will have one in a couple weeks at the dispatch center at 3 a.m. I'll be there with my staff, mostly to support them. They're doing the actual work. I'm just there to help them out. That's just what we do, right? If you do enough IT properly, you don't get called out a lot. And if we're called, we go, period, right? 'Cause it's important. If you get too willy-nilly and distracted by everything that's going on as an IT group and kind of run ragged, it tends to start turning into a lot of call outs and things start springing leaks, and you're driving down the road and you're like, well, the check engine light's on and the car feels really bumpy and the glove box just fell out and there's a moldy sandwich in there. You're like, it's probably fine. I guess maybe and I should probably get somewhere quickly, right? It's just a juggle.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You know, Nate, I was looking at your budget here,
Yeah.
and I can see that back in fiscal year 22, your supplies and your other services and charges were pretty equal. But now your other services and charges are about 50% higher than your supplies. So can you break down what these other services and charges are?
Yeah.
And is that kind of an escalation that you're anticipating to continue?
Yes and no. I would say that some of it is that there's things that IT pays on behalf of departments. We don't necessarily always bill it out. So you see some of that decision to back bill or not back bill could artificially inflate our budget, right? I'm holding a bill. I could send it out to every city department for their prorated cost of it, but maybe I just eat it on behalf of, because that's what the finance department wants me to do. So that's what I do. I'm not going to argue with them. We've added some systems, email firewall, various things. So that'll increase it also, just having more stuff, right? So I'll give you an example. We have 55 network sites. We have another 110 network sites we cover that are SCADA, which is wastewater and water control and monitoring, spread all throughout this Prescott Basin. We have around 700 computers. We have 300 network blinky boxes. They call them switches. That's what they look like. They're a blinky box, like a pizza box. They got a bunch of things that connect to them. They make lights. We got a lot of stuff. I'm not out at the grocery store putting flyers under people's windshield wipers to call IT because I'm bored and I want something to do. So as the organization wants more IT, we kind of got to follow them, but try to do it in a way that's economically sound. We're not just chasing the bleeding edge. That's dumb, frankly. So yeah, you're going to see some budget variation in there based just on that drive of we would like to do more stuff. And then either I got to say no, problematic, or how can I achieve what you department would like to do, but how do I do it within the context of the city's not here for IT, the IT is here to serve the city, if that makes sense, right? So I don't personally trust IT people who are just hugely into technology for the sake of technology. To me, it's got to have a purpose. So as the organization demands more IT for a purpose from us, our job is to figure out how to deliver it to them and do it in a way we can if it's economically feasible. Does that answer your question?
Well, sort of.
All right.
I mean, if you have more and more demands from internal charges or even what you just described as providing services to outside public safety agencies, which they get in essence for free, because you're providing the analysis, the expertise, and the time to be able to respond, but they don't have to pay for them, then at some point you have a customer base that's getting free product.
Yeah, we're competing with ourselves,
Yeah.
essentially, yeah.
So I think it's important to start identifying those so we can see where the trends are. And if certain internal departments or external departments are starting to really demand your time and cost, then we need to be able to recover that cost.
I would agree. Yeah, for sure.
I was reading an article in Forbes regarding the increasing amount of ransomware that's hitting municipalities and really big agencies. Even I think Meta got hit. So we have companies out there now that are solely focused on identifying weaknesses for their customer base and notifying them that if they're using a particular software product, that they need to get a patch in there very quickly before they're subject to some of these horrible ransomware and the costs involved in that. There's a company called Coalition, another one called AtBay. And I think as this continues to proliferate, it makes our system somewhat vulnerable. Every single time I've read about one of these ransomwares, I also read about their IT department that said, well, we thought we were protected. But some of these guys that do these ransomwares, they're very talented. They know there's not a lot of money involved. And if they can find a vulnerability, they'll exploit it.
Yep.
So have you looked into maybe ransomware or cybersecurity insurance?
Yeah, the city actually carries cybersecurity insurance through their risk pool. We have a number of tools we use to assess our own vulnerability, right? Because if I asked the person running this right now to put up a threat map from any security company, those are pulled from telemetry data. It's constant. It's not constant because somebody's in a basement somewhere with a hoodie on in the dark typing away. It's constant because it's automated. That's the scary part. So if you take the analogy like this is our network and outside that window is the internet, you're going to see a nonstop stream of people walking up to see if our windows are open or they're locked. Can I go in through the door or is the door locked? What about the ceiling? Just constantly. So any kind of weakness you have, it beacons. Hey, I found something. I found an open door at 201 North Montezuma. And then somebody comes in a day or two later, they start trying to set up shop, see what we got here. Generally, if you're one of these unlucky people, you get ransomware. It starts out as like a thing. People are calling, we can't get our files. Turns out they're getting encrypted, they're getting deleted. And then you're in a world of pain because now your systems break down. Meaning we have a data network, but our data network is essentially worthless, right? Our finance system's encrypted. It might disrupt public safety. It might disrupt all kinds of things. And at that point, you're talking months to get out of it. Even if you're like, hey, here's a sack of money attacker. Pinky promise you won't do it to us again tomorrow. Realistically here, 4 to 6 months probably to get out of it. And in that time, you're down. Like your systems are gone. It's like, hey, Tyler, what would you like our new email system to be named? Because that's what we're at. Joe, do you have any favorite Microsoft Word documents you like to use? Because we're starting from scratch. Just like we teleported in time back 25, 30 years. So number one focus for us is always avoiding that scenario, but it's complicated. Now, part of what you do is you make yourself a small target, right? I don't drive around with leaving my keys in my car. IT-wise, we don't do that here. We get notices every week from the federal government through CISA, which is like a federal IT, to scan things and tell us. We get things within an hour on our websites if there's something that's insecure, known problem. And if we don't fix it within a certain amount of time, they do it. They're like, hey, I'm telling you, you need to fix this. You got 4 hours. If you don't do it, we're just doing it. I don't care if it breaks your website. Like, okay, fair enough. Thank you. So we try to be proactive. The enemy of being proactive is always being really busy. That's that diverted gaze thing, right? So I know those threats are out there beyond those windows. On one hand, I can't be terrified of them and afraid to act, because that doesn't really do any good either, right? But if I'm distracted and I'm over here looking over here, and meanwhile, a bunch of people run in through the open door and they're setting up shop, and I'm like, whoa, how did that happen? Like, well, it happened because it happens. And now it's too late, right? The day after an event's the wrong time to talk about we coulda, we shoulda, gee whiz, it would have been a good idea. Like, it's too late. It's game over. It's more like, are we going to try to get our data back? And the FBI doesn't want you to settle. That's the federal position. Do not give these people money. And I get it. Easy to say when it's not your stuff, it's locked up. And the average right now for ransomware that's reported is around $250,000 per incident, paid to an attacker. That doesn't count the people that just fall on their swords and don't pay. And it doesn't count a company I read about last week, big company, but it was tens of millions of dollars they coughed up, plus the losses. It was in the entertainment industry. If I'm a Fortune 100, let's say, I would suspect they are. How do you measure that? If you're down for a month, 100 million? More? So it is absolutely devastating. It's like a information technology bomb goes off if you get hit with one of these things. So it's something we take very seriously in IT. It's something that we are very diligent about. And to me, the way you prepare for that kind of a thing is you think backwards. If I was going to attack the city, how would I do it? That also is how I'm going to defend the city. If it happens to us, how might we get an inkling it's going on, right? It's not the people that run in and break your car windows and drive off in your car you should be as afraid of. It's the people you can't tell, right? So let's say Chelsea's a hacker, since she's sitting here. If she's a really good hacker, she's not going to look like a hacker. And I might completely miss it for months, for weeks, and then game over. I'm like, how did this happen? I'm like, well, somebody snuck in who doesn't look like an obvious threat, but they are. That's what you got to be aware of, right? So on one hand, you got to be smart. Cybersecurity, there's a lot of people selling you cybersecurity snake oil these days, right? If you just buy our thing, it'll be wonderful. You'll never have problems. But IT is about people. Some of you have had experience with people trying to phish you, convince you that I'm someone else. Please send me your password, right? That goes on all the time, everywhere in the world. So it's something we deal with. It's something that's part of the environment. It's just the stakes are really high. And that's unfortunate. But as soon as the monetary driver for that falls away, ransomware will go to be something else. That doesn't help you if you're the one that gets ransomware, though, right? You're like, well, in a couple of years, this will be something we might laugh about. Like, no, we're not going to laugh about it. It's going to be horrible. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. And it will be something else, but it doesn't help you right here, right now, today in Prescott, Arizona. That kind of a thing. So that's the thing that always goes through my head that keeps me awake at night is like, what can we do more of? What can we do better? Where are we exposed? And also just understanding in IT, it's not magic how people get in. Just knowing how this is how they do what they do. It's they have an attack, you have a counterattack. They have a counter to your counterattack, and you counter their counterattack, right? It's back and forth, that never ends. That's just what it is.
Well, I know it's an area of technology that seems to advance pretty rapidly. There's a lot of concern in it, and a couple of these companies really have a kind of a high-level capability. Sometimes it's good to be able to get in when they're early in their development stages, because you sometimes can get a better deal on it. Mm-hmm. And even though it's not just being reimbursed for your costs, because they can be substantial.
Yeah.
But until you're getting reimbursed and you get your systems back up and operating, you're in big trouble.
Yeah. It's like insurance, right? Like most people, I have 2 teenagers, so I pay a hefty chunk of change every month for car insurance. But I would rather do that than find out one of my teenagers wrecked a car, right? So it's one of the same kind of things. Like, insurance isn't cheap, but not having insurance is pretty expensive.
Well, I think the interesting story that I read about this was one of these companies had about 35,000 customers, and apparently there was a vulnerability that was identified in a software program called Citrix. So they only had about 600 customers that were using some version of that, but they were able to identify what the weakness was, notify all those customers, and I think 4 out of 5 of them were able to bring in that patch and protect themselves within a matter of a couple of weeks. So that's the kind of performance that can really keep you from having to get a ransomware and have to deal with the consequences and the costs.
Absolutely.
Might be something worth looking into and maybe letting us know what's available out there and what it might be valuable for our city's IT department to have.
Absolutely.
Do we have any public comment?
No, Mayor.
Is that it for you today, Nate?
We're going to show you some of the website by your leave here. And you probably have noticed, the public's probably noticed that we changed to a new City of Prescott website, and that Sadie Sardi, who's standing right next to me, is a huge reason why that was not only done, but highly successful. So I'm going to shut up for a minute, and I'm going to let Sadie talk a little bit.
So hi everybody, I'm Sadie Sardi. I have a web and graphic design company here in Prescott, and I had the pleasure of digging through 1,200 pages of content and working with all of the departments of the City of Prescott to organize and kind of streamline a system to hold content in a way that I think makes a lot of sense. So I'm really happy with kind of the system that we put together, and this is one of those tangibles that you get from an IT department. So this is the side that's kind of fun. As I worked through talking with all the different departments and understanding the complexity of what each department does and how the content pages needed to kind of flow, I decided to create essentially a mini website inside of this one for each of the departments. So I thought what I would do right now is just give you a little tour of the site in case you guys haven't had a chance to really dig in, and just kind of give you the logic that's behind it so that you can follow it. And if anybody asks you where to find something and you need to guide them a little bit, you'll be able to do that a little bit better. So one place that I will just start is under this department button at the top. This is a landing page that just lists what I consider departments, which I know are not actual departments inside of the city. We broke them into what I think the public would sort of imagine the logical kind of groupings to be. So we didn't just put a public works department on here. We broke it into streets and trash and so on. So this is where we begin to have now a mini website for each of the departments themselves, where there is a top navigation here that flows all of these pages in the dark green background. Those are all within the budget and finance. So each section of this website has its own navigation, and the contact information for that department is located at the end, and that's consistent across the board. So if you're looking for a specific department contact, that's how you get to it. So that is great if you already kind of have an intuitive sense of who you need to contact for something. But because we also knew that the public might not know exactly who to drill down to get to for something like a permit or a license, or even to know how to ask for a public record, for example, we also built these audience views. So if you go to the resident view, these break all of these funnel to the correct department page, but it's kind of a pathway to get folks to get to what they're looking for. So a really good example of that is this report an issue, because there's a lot of issues that can be reported, and they're throughout a lot of the different departments. So if the resident just goes to residents, report an issue, and then now they can see that they want to report something like this road issue, then there you go. You're in the streets department now, and you're right at the form that needs to be filled out. So the 4 audiences that we thought were the most kind of logical are residents, visitors, government, and business. And so if you explore around in the website a bit, you can start from that angle, and you kind of see how things will drill down. And then beyond that, there's a new kind of way that we are giving public information. And instead of just having one area on the homepage to kind of break apart what is important and kind of quick notices for people to have, we now have the news and updates section, which we will be posting in here. And then there's kind of shorter, quicker notices that will come under these press releases and notifications. And then we broke apart the ongoing projects that folks in the community are interested in knowing more about. And that is kind of longer term projects that will stay on the homepage. But we thought it was really important to kind of break that so that we're not always just looking at one laundry list of, kind of different topics in the way that it was set up before. So I'm very proud of the product that we came up with. It took a while, but I think it was a really important process to go through. And I got to know a lot about all the city services. And that's really what, I guess the last thing I would say about this site is that this is a site that was built with city services in mind. This is not the visitor tourism site. We link over on the visitor audience view. All of those go to the Experience Prescott website. So all the pages that are linked to within that audience view take users over to that site, and that's where a lot more of the kind of marketing side goes. My focus with this website was much more to market to the residents of Prescott and to make sure that we as a community have a place that we can go and get the proper service that we're looking for. I was not thinking of it as much of a tourism drive. I feel like that's what this other Experience Prescott site does and does very well. And so that's kind of the separation in the way that I was viewing the content and how I was serving it up, was to really serve the citizens of Prescott with that information and help them to find where they need to go. So we hope you like it. And do you have any questions about the site?
Councilmember Rusing.
Thank you, Sadie. This is such a huge improvement over what we had before. Could you show us, say, a citizen, how a citizen would contact one of the elected officials?
Sure. So I consider that under government. And then from this, you have the choice of city leadership, city court, water issues, data transparency, report an issue, and then improving Prescott. So from what you asked, I would just go straight to city leadership. This drills that down a little bit more, and I would just probably go directly to city council, and then there you guys are. And I believe the contact information is just right underneath the names of each person. And if you know who you need here, like you want to bug Eric, you just click on it and it'll go straight down.
Okay, thank you so much. That's such a big improvement. So easy to find us. And it reminds me I need to update my profile there. It's a little outdated. Sorry.
Well, that is also another great point about web. So we built this amazing system, and it is very functional right now because everybody just looked at it. But a website is a living, breathing machine, and it has to be updated all the time in order to be able to serve the public in the way that it should. And the IT department does not know what needs to go on this website. The departments need to take it seriously that they need to take ownership over their section of each of these pages, because the only person who's going to know that that's out of date is that person in that department. And there's a communication that has to always be in very tight form in order for a website like this one to not just degrade over time. And so it needs to be a complete citywide effort in order to keep the site in as good of condition as it is today, because the IT department can't do it magically on its own. And I work with clients all over the country, and that is my greatest plea with every single one, is that they need to be paying attention, they need to be looking at the content that's on there, and then they need to be very clear about what it is that it needs to say and what purpose it should have, and give the IT department as much detail as possible when making additions to it so that it can stay as clear as it is right now. One of the main reasons why this website is so much better than the one that was before is because we have a lot of like custom groupings of content where we have titles to boxes of information, and we're not just listing documents and links out of context. So in order to keep that kind of clarity with the site, everything that's added to this website has to come with that clarity. What is this PDF and why does the public care? And then with that information, the IT department can then make their own decisions about where that should go and, actually put it on the page or have me do it, or however we work that out. But the point is that, the reason why this is so good right now is because there's so much thought put into every single PDF that's on this website has some kind of context to go with it, or every paragraph or every external link has context. So that's the big push is, this is not a one and done project. This is an ongoing thing that needs to be monitored and looked after. And, it's only going to stay as good as those who put in the effort and kind of follow up and try to maintain the logic that's in it. In order to, keep it as great as it is.
Councilwoman Fruworth.
Well, you actually began the discussion that I wanted to have, which, by the way, first off, congratulations. Great project. And I've heard a lot of public comments and even radio hosts going to blame the city on something, seeing the new website and coming back on and saying, oh my God, I found exactly what I was looking for. So thank you. But my concern was when I first heard that we were rolling it out, I went and looked at a couple of things, and they had things that were like, this commission is meeting these dates in 2020. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, person in that commission, we got to get these things updated. So that brings me more to Tyler and Nate and the operations is how are we in the process of moving from launch to validation and then figuring out how to maintain this thing so it stays pristine?
I could speak to some of that. So after you do something, there's always like you get a new puppy or something. So the newness is there, right? And the newness starts to go away, and you're like, oh, there's things I wish they told me. We're being pretty aggressive as a department about, I guess you could say we've picked up a lot of very valuable things from Sadie as far as how to view requests for a web thing. So asking the right questions. What is this? Why is this? Where does it go? Does it belong on here? And I think it's just incumbent upon us, Sadie even, and Sadie's extremely valuable as a within government, right? Like there's certain government things I just know because I work here. That doesn't mean anything if you don't work at the city of Prescott necessarily. To Tyler, to Sarah, of just kind of like, there's a standard of quality we want. We need to maintain that level of quality, and if it doesn't meet it, it's not going on the site, period. We can talk about it, we can refine it, we can make it better, but garbage in, garbage out. So I think it's just being aware and then combating that with process and being smart, and then periodically coming back and sanity checking it. Like, is the site wandered a little bit over here? It has. Let's push it back over here, rein this in a little bit, more of this, less of that, and then you keep it kind of the same consistent quality moving forward.
I mean, definitely a goal of the website is to keep the updated information fresh and relevant, right? Especially for, like you mentioned, boards and commissions. There's turnover. Sometimes there can be quite a bit of turnover. So it's ensuring that, especially meeting times, we've heard over the years that a lot of people have concerns about, I don't know who's meeting and when. So that's something that we like to keep automated, refreshed, relevant. So appointed elected officials and meetings are certainly things that can be updated and even automated to some level.
I'll say too, I know for my part, my staff and I have spent a lot of time working with Sadie before the website went live, and then even after it's gone live, and kind of going through each one of our sections to make sure that everything's up to date. Sadie, could you go to the boards and commissions, to the active group, so I can show one of the things that I was most happy with that Sadie was able to do for us was to integrate the public portal where all of the meeting agendas and minutes are posted into the individual landing pages for each of the boards. And this makes it so much easier for our citizens, our board members who are volunteers, to go in and find when the next meeting is. If they need to go back and find older meeting minutes or something of that nature, it's much easier to locate that now on the website than it was before. And that was something that I expressed to Sadie was really important to me for my department and for our citizens, because that's a complaint that I've heard before. And so I'm really happy with how that has turned out. But I know that other departments are doing kind of the same thing and just going through and checking all of the information, working with IT to get it up to date.
How's the keyword process working?
As
If you
far
go
as,
and put in keyword pothole, does it take you to a street maintenance report?
and are you talking about within the website itself or when you go to Google?
Well, if I'm on the city website,
If you're
that's
on
what I
the
would be
search.
looking for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it works pretty well. We could look up something like permits. And so the function of this search is that it will serve up the pages that have the most relevant term that you've looked for, and then it also is highlighting anytime that it sees that word in yellow, both on the search result here as well as if once you get to the page, if I click on the page, it continues to hold that highlight, which is pretty helpful visually to understand, you know, do I see the actual relevant content? This was specifically helpful or particularly helpful when you have to go into some of these drop downs, because sometimes your keyword might be inside of a toggle. And so it's important to know that we have nested some information in order to have it be a little less overwhelming as you're scrolling down the page and you don't have just lists and lists of items. But sometimes if a search result has populated a page and you get there and you don't see anything highlighted on it, once you toggle some of these down, I've noticed that the search result will actually be inside of one of these. But in general, I think that the search is working well. It's all good feedback as far as if you are looking for something and you're not finding it right away. I think that's something that would be really important for us to know, especially as you guys start using the website more. There's a couple different places that I think that could help is in the audience views. If you're looking for something through that, that was very much an intuitive kind of feel it out process to figure out how to drill people down. I do not want all of the pages on the whole website up in that area. I definitely want it to be more of an arrow pointing down into the departments. But if there's something that really feels like it's missing, that would be a great thing for us to know so that we can add another tile. And then also, if you're missing something with a keyword, a lot of times what we need to do is add it to the page title, because those page titles get served up really quickly. So if we're talking about potholes and it's in the lower part of the content, but it's not in that title, and that somehow is tripping up the search, that would be something that we would love to know, that use case, so that then we could go in and make some adjustments so that it does populate. But for the most part, it feels very comprehensive. And it is also not searching code or PDFs, which the previous site was, and that was kind of ballooning the search results into an overwhelm state of too much information. So this is just searching the pages, which there's 400 pages in here. So it's it's searching through a lot of data, and it's looking at PDF titles that are placed onto the page. So as long as your PDF is titled properly with the keyword that's in it. So it's much more about how the content was placed on the page to make that search work, as opposed to the search function itself being wrong. So it's all about how we get content on here and how we might need to manipulate it a little bit if it's not serving the appropriate result.
Very good. Do we have any public comment?
We do not.
Councilwoman Furworth?
Yeah, one more question, therefore. If we start hearing feedback or we run into things, how would you like us? Would you like us to go through the departments to give them that feedback and have them feedback that to you all, or would you rather us go to you? What's the best way to work this?
I would say it's okay to let IT know. They're the ones that are managing the website, and simple feedback like that will probably be the fastest ways to get through them.
And then we can go to the department and discuss it if we need to, if we have more questions or we need more context. That's how I would approach it anyway.
So Nate, is that you or is there someone? Okay, cool.
Councilman Gambogi?
2 questions. While you have that screen up, could you type in the word pothole?
Sure. Is pothole 1 or 2 words? Report a problem. Or street maintenance and repair.
I asked that question for the benefit of our resident Tony Hamer, who's watching this online. My second question is, on boards and commissions, do you have membership listed within a board and commission?
So we don't list the members of our boards and commissions on the city website. They're volunteers. There's a lot of turnover sometimes. So we do not have names of members. We have a summary of each board and commission, states whether it's a standing committee, which was established by all of us here at the city, if it's a state statute requirement, or if it's a mayoral ad hoc, and we actually have the mayoral ad hocs in a separate section altogether, and just kind of what they do and how often they meet, but the member information is not posted.
Very good. I think that concludes our presentation from the IT department. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to the last item on our regular agenda, item 10B.
Denial of resolution number 2023-1869, authorizing staff to enter into an IGA with the Arizona Department of Transportation to accept a federal highway safety improvement program grant in the amount of $1,040,050 for the construction of a new traffic signal at the corner of Gail, Gardner Way and Fair Street.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'll speak really briefly to this item. We don't have a formal presentation to give you. We didn't bring staff here to get into this any further. I think we've talked a lot, but just by way of background, really briefly, this item first came to City Council in June of 2022 for approval to go out for a grant application. We did receive that approval and went forward. Staff brought this back initially in November of last year and again in February, just about a month ago, to discuss it. This staff is recommending the denial of this resolution based on the feedback we've heard very clearly from council as well as the public. I'll speak to something that's kind of been debated back and forth. This money cannot go to other projects within the city. It was applied for specifically for this light at Fair Street and Gail Gardner. It could not be applied anywhere else in the city. I'll also just say it's okay to deny a grant opportunity. We don't have to accept a grant if it's not the right fit. So with that, I'll turn it back to Mayor if there's any discussion.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Tyler. You know, I think one of the key issues that was brought to my attention at this last meeting was the fact that here's this award for $1,050,000 for a signaled intersection. And when we found out from our public works department, if they were building it on their own, it would cost somewhere around maybe less than half that. So somewhere between $400,000 and $500,000. So I'm just reminded almost daily that our federal deficit is $34 trillion. And when you have those types of dramatic variations in actual cost to be able to produce a project or a service to the community, that's vastly padded with extra costs, that made my decision pretty easy to make. Mayor Pro Tem.
I'm just going to move to.
You want to move and go ahead and make the motion?
Mayor, you do have some public comment. I don't know if you'd like to take it or how you want to handle that.
I'll listen. Have a feeling that probably Miss Ingram might have something to say.
Sarah Michelle Taylor.
Mayor and Council, thank you for hearing us. My name is Sarah Michelle Taylor, and I live at Fair and Gail Gardner. We in the neighborhood don't have any need for the light, and we don't want to ruin the characteristic of our neighborhood. As it was mentioned before, let's press pause and continue to ask the tough questions, look at the data, and gather input before applying for things we don't have a need for, and focus on future items such as traffic calming, and look for grants for public service such as fire and police, as we could use additional resources such as another fire station as we continue to grow. Thank you.
Sue Manuel.
Mayor and Council, I love being called Jenny because she's a firecracker, and I hope to be one when I get a couple more years on me. Thank you for hearing us. My name is Sue Manuel. I live at 508 Fairgrounds and have lived there on my family's property my entire life. The four-way stop at Fair Street and Gail Gardner Way is just what is needed, as it calms the traffic on Gail Gardner Way. Gail Gardner has a posted speed limit of 30 miles per hour, but traffic does exceed that, and the traffic light would only make that worse when more dangerous as drivers speed up to beat the yellow light. The four-way stop has worked for decades. Per memo from Ian Madeline dated 6 of 23, quote, the existing stop control can continue to work for a long period to provide adequate vehicle level of service for many years, unquote. The neighborhood would welcome pedestrian safety enhancements in lieu of the signalization. The traffic light is not wanted by the neighborhood or the citizens that use that intersection, as Brandon Montoya can attest from his meetings with the public at the farmers market. I'm asking you, no, I'm pleading with you, all of you, just to say yes and vote to deny this grant. Relieve the stress and anxiety that has been running through our neighborhood and community regarding this issue. Thank you much for your consideration.
Truly Bracken.
Mayor and Council, my remarks really relate to what was just presented about the IT department. When this first became a matter of public interest last summer in 2023, a lot of us were surprised. And I had to learn to find my way around the city website to look at minutes. And then turning to Deb Thalassides, I learned to find my way around SIMPO and the Technical Advisory Committee, where the proposal, I think, originated. When it was first proposed, it was within a window after that tragic death at the intersection. It's actually a death that could have occurred with a stoplight, because a left turn is something that can be made by people even more readily if they think they have a green light and don't see a person in that intersection. I would like to suggest, and I'm not sure if this is possible, that there might be a link at some point on the website, which may already exist, to SIMPO, so that people understand that the transportation planning function on a countywide basis can often have an impact on our neighborhoods, and that there's a way to get the information in a more timely manner before it even comes before the council. I also want sincerely, as a resident who passes through that intersection multiple times a day, as does my husband, to thank you for listening to our voices and to urge you to vote to disapprove this project, to agree with the city staff. Thank you.
That's all, Mayor.
Well, I know there's a lot of confusion in the community regarding this, but this is almost a perfect example of what happens when the federal government shows up and says, we're here to help. Well, you got strings attached to this, and boy, there's big ones. You can't use it for anything else. People have said, well, why don't you use it for another signal light in a different location, or maybe use it for some traffic calming? Can't you be used for anything else? And for it to be twice as expensive as if we did it on our own, it just goes to show you that, yeah, we're here from the federal government. We're here to help. Boy, put your hand on your wallet. So I think with that said, it's pretty clear that the community and the neighborhood, and I drive that intersection quite frequently, and I've never had a problem waiting just a little bit to get through there. And I agree. I think most drivers will take the time to look both ways and make sure it's safe to proceed. And even the people down there at Westridge, when you got the rodeo going on, if you had a red signal light there, boy, they'd never get out of that street. So at least now, with a little bit of patience, they can navigate their exit. So with that said, I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'm going to make a move here in 1 minute, but before I do that, I just want to make sure that the neighborhood, if you're not already on the list with Public Works to continue to do something in that intersection, make sure you do. You contact them to enhance that intersection, because we've all talked about the alternative of maybe some further enhancements. So anyway, with that, I move to deny resolution number 2023-1869.
Second.
Very good. We have a motion and a second. Please vote. A yes vote will be to deny this grant.
Passes 6-0.
Thank you for that rousing round of applause. So we will conclude this meeting with what I consider to be rather timely comment from one of our founding fathers, and certainly food for thought as these national issues become more and more to the forefront in this election year. The God who gave us life gave us liberty. Can the liberties of a nation be secure when we have removed a conviction that these liberties are the gift of God? Food for thought. That was over 200 years ago from Thomas Jefferson. This meeting is adjourned.